I'm I'm Jack Pierce.
I'm Maisie Roth.
And we are your student council.
We are excited again to be here tonight and update you on what has been happening at Valley.
In elective and core classes, students are working on some fun projects. In Mr. Kaplan's STEAM class, students just finished their digital photography slideshow and are now working on music montages. Music montage is where students choose a video and select like individual photos to go with the following lyrics. The images can either be funny and goofy or serious.
In Miss Brown's Math in the Real World, students have been working on housing and budgeting projects and are now presenting to their peers.
In Miss Ripley's art classes, students are glazing their pottery projects, pinch pots, and coil pots. The students are really excited to show off some of their work at the HBS art show coming up.
8th grade has some exciting things going on. In science, students are working on a Can Your Boat Float project. And in 8th grade social studies, students just finished the Civil War unit and completed book reports on one of the 3 choices: Amistad, a Lincoln picture biography, or a Frederick Douglass biography. On Thursday, June 9th, the 8th graders will be heading to the Museum of Tolerance.
Recently, the 8th graders walked on the hill near the band room to check on the native Hermosa conservation project they have been helping with. We are happy to report that some of the native plants have been sprouting and bringing more life to the hill. Students just filled out their 3rd grade book projects. The 3rd graders filled out a form about themselves, and the 8th graders were provided these forms and are using them to create stories. It's such a fun tradition, and we can't wait for the 8th grade, 3rd grade book celebration. This celebration will be held on Monday, June 13th. The 8th grade is also going to start their legacy project soon. They'll be decorating clay tiles to hang behind Mrs. Heath's classroom.
Spring sports update. We hope you can come support our fantastic volleyball boys in their last home game of the season versus Dana tomorrow, May 12th at 3:30 p.m.
Also, our track team is getting ready for the South Bay Middle School Track and Field Championships on May 24th at PV High School. The first race begins at 3:45 p.m. and the last race begins at 5:55 p.m. We hope to see you there.
Thank you again for allowing our student council to share what is happening at Valley. We look forward to sharing more information with you next month.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ASB. That was great. Next, we'd like to invite up Miss Tanita, who's going to share a little bit about our TK Kinder program highlights.
How do I top that? That was awesome. Loved hearing from the students. Members of the board, Dr. Johnson, thank you for this opportunity to share about TK in kindergarten at Hermosa View. You can, next slide. So as you know, last July, Governor Newsom signed AB 130, which provides a plan to expand TK for all 4-year-olds through 2025. So next slide. This year is year 1, where we have our TK program has expanded if you turn 5 in December. So we have Miss Payne and a little bit in Miss Lang's class, we have a TK class and a quarter. And if you look at this diagram, you'll see each year the deadline extends. So next year, if you turn 5 by February, each year it grows until 2025. If they're 5 by September, all 4-year-olds will be able to come for TK, which is wonderful because it's such a great program to really prepare students for success, right? So you wonder, what's the difference between TK and kindergarten? So kindergarten follows the California standards, and TK has a framework which really helps provide students with those readiness skills. So there it's much more developmental in nature, more exploratory and center-based. So while kindergarten does that too, there's a little more stamina needed, a little bit more academics in kindergarten, where TK really focuses on those school readiness goals. So you can see how they're similar and how they're different in this chart. Currently, Ms. Peng and I are looking at curriculum that really matches the framework. So they're really getting a 2-year kindergarten program. So each year is very different. If you go to the next slide, you can see some pictures from her class. So you can see, the kitchen, the role modeling, the playing, there's STEAM going on in there with the Magna blocks. And then there's some academics going on, but it's much more play-based and really giving students that time and the time and space to really grow in all their skills. So Ms. Peng and I are not only looking at curriculum, we're also evaluating the report card so that it truly reflects what they're learning and doing in class. And typically, I wish when I went in to take her picture, usually I'm in there, they're singing and yoga and lots of other stuff. But when I went in this past week, that's what I saw. Slide. So to tell the public how things are changing, we started in January. We had a Zoom meeting with Dr. J and Ms. Gluck and our team, where we shared with our community what the TK program and the kindergarten program is. And then we followed with an in-person meeting in February at Vista. Right? Following those information nights, we had some tours at Vista. So this parents came, and it was very clear that the people who are ready to come were first-time mom and dads. So, really, we take great responsibility and care, knowing these are your most treasured people, right? And so really wanted to let them know that we're ready to take care of them. And so we although we're not at View next year, I wanted to again have a feel of what campus life was like. So we walked through the schools and then went in a couple of classrooms and had some questions and answers. And we're really excited to go in May, at the end of May and beginning of June, and visit View. So the first sets of invitations just went out this past weekend, and we'll just continue to send them out as people enroll so they're aware. Slide. I'm really excited about this new event. So typically, I understand they used to have back to school night, TK and Kinder separately, but we really wanted a chance for those students to come on campus before school started. So on September 1st, I have actually, we have a meet and greet. And so as you can see, they have pictures of the teachers they'll meet, and they'll have a little scavenger hunt. The dolphin will be there, dolphin with donuts. The PTO, HBF will be there, STAR will be there. They'll get a chance to see where their classrooms are, where the bathrooms are, where they eat lunch. And just so before school starts, not just for the students, but for the parents, they know where their children are going, so they can take their students to school and go get coffee and relax and enjoy the first day of school instead of being worried, like, do they know where to go? So we're really excited about this event. And then TK and kindergarten will have their back to school night with everybody else as a full school. I think that's the last slide. Is there one more slide? Okay. So, as a former kindergarten teacher, I know sometimes people think, oh, kindergarten, they're just playing with Play-Doh and, that kind of thing. But I think it really sets the foundation for loving learning and growing that curiosity. I still remember my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Gooch. If you know natural foods, that was my kindergarten teacher. And so, that's our hope, is that that's what we develop in students. And so I just have a little old poem that I did not write. Maybe you've heard it, but maybe you're too young. It's called All I Really Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten by Robert Fulghum. Let me take some excerpts, because this is really my hope for what happens at View. All I really need to know about how to live and what to do and how to be, I learned in kindergarten. Wisdom was not at the top of graduate school mountain, but there in the sand pile at Sunday school. These are the things I learned. Share everything. Play fair. Don't hit people. Put things back where you found them. Clean up your own mess. Don't take things that aren't yours and say you're sorry when you hurt somebody. Live a balanced life. Learn some, think some, draw and paint, sing and dance and play, and work every day. And when you go out into the world, watch out for traffic. Hold hands, stick together. Be aware of wonder. Remember that little seed in that styrofoam cup? The roots go down and the plants goes up, and nobody really knows why or how. But we're all like that. Goldfish and hamsters and white mice, and even the little seed in the styrofoam cup, they all die, and so do we. And then remember the Dick and Jane books. The first word you learn, the biggest word of all, look. Everything you know is there somewhere. The golden rule, love, basic sanitation, ecology, politics, equality, sane living. Take any of those items and extrapolate them into sophisticated adult terms and apply it to your family life or your work or government or your world. And it holds true, clear and firm. And it's still true, no matter how old you are, when you go out to the world, it's best to hold hands and stick together. That's it. Any
Thank you.
questions? Any questions from the board?
Oh, Robert Fulgham, just leaving us with good words. Thank you. Appreciate it. I think it's time for Science Olympiad, Jason.
Yeah, wow, that was something else. All right, so next we have the great honor of having our Science Olympiad team here. So if they could all come up and be honored, I mean, like for their success. They went all the way to the state. So come on up. We have the great Miss Loth and Miss Sharp and company in the house as well too. But if I could either have a student or Miss Loth talk a little bit about their success and share a little bit about the competition itself.
Sure, I can share a little bit. So this is our Science Olympiad team. So proud of each and every one of them for all of their hard work. We started back in October with our first kind of informational meetings, and then our team grew from there. And all of these Olympians behind me are first year Science Olympians. So it's everybody's first year on the team. It's their first time doing something like this. And so me, Miss Sharp, and Miss Burrell are just so proud of all of them for all of their hard work, their dedication, and for their incredible success for a first year team. So really proud of this whole group.
So do you have some students who are coming up, or can I talk first? You have students coming? I just want to say thank you so much for doing such a great job and putting your heart and soul into this. I think I got to watch the Wright brothers airplane launch, and I think there was also some catapulting that I saw being experimented on. So it was great to watch you all in action and just take ideas and the teamwork I saw and the creativity to put these things together under pressure for the first time. It's a high stress situation. So thank you so much for your work on behalf of your fellow students and lifting up the field of science. The South Bay has always been a historical hotbed for science. So you guys have stepped into the shoes of folks who built rocket ships and other things that have pushed humankind forward. So thank you for doing your small part in pushing humankind forward. I think we have some certificates. And Jason, how do you want to go down with that?
We're going to have Christine here hand out our certificates, and then we're going to take a group photo.
Excellent.
First, we'd like to honor our teachers, Hannah Law, Jennifer Sharp, we also have a certificate for Kathy Spurrell, but I don't think she's here this evening. Thank you, Kathy, if you're listening. Hayden Bartlett. Connor Candelas. Melody Elliott. Conway Free. Ellie Gardner. Nikita Degree. No. Help me, Nikita. How do you say your last name? Jaguar. We want to get it right. Isaac Lemieux. Katie Matson. Jack Pierce. There we go, Jack. Ashley Plummer. Brian Schultz. Amia Sai. Nate Williams. And Takashi Za. Thank you. And can we invite the board down to take a picture, please?
A big thanks to our Science Olympiad and also to our teacher coaches as well too. Just a tremendous achievement.
We're just starting the board meeting, everyone. You don't have to leave.
Thank you again, families, for attending. Next, I'd like to invite up Jay Peck, our new M&O coordinator.
Hey, everybody. Wow, follow that. All that hard work that those guys did. Anyways, let's get to business. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be in front of this distinguished board. My name is Jay Peck. I'm your new maintenance and operations coordinator. I've been serving the district probably for close to 20 years. I have knowledge and experience in plumbing, painting, electrical, and the HVAC systems, and a wide variety of maintenance skills. I've done work on all 3 sites, including district office, working closely with site administrators on different projects, whether it's the tile, whether it's the planters in the back, things where Boy Scouts, Eagle Scouts, Girl Scouts, and even Brownies have done different things on site. I've also worked with outside groups such as PTO, HBYB, and Hermosa Beach Little League, things that come on campus as part of the facilities. So it's important that we have our eyes on it. So I'm looking forward to working with our team, Dr. Johnson, on implementing the vision that he has for all 3 sites. There's a lot of work ahead of us, and I'm so excited about it. And as a maintenance and operations coordinator, I'm excited of what lies ahead. Thank you. Any questions?
We can do another round of applause. Jay, thank you so much for taking on this challenge. Kids are messy. We got to go back to what you learned in kindergarten and make sure they clean up after themselves. So thank you. I think we're ready for public communications. No more announcements running up. Okay, so let me move to public communications. Public comments from the audience to the board in person. The members of the audience may address the board on any topic, regardless of whether it's listed on the agenda. However, the board may not discuss issues that are not listed on the agenda. Topics not on the agenda brought to the board's attention may be investigated by the administration and a report made to the board either publicly or privately at a future meeting. Comments from visitors shall not exceed 3 minutes per individual speaker unless waived by a majority of all members of the board. Do we have any pink cards?
I have not received any pink cards tonight.
Excellent. I'm hoping just people are being
Of
audience
public
members. Just,
comment.
do we have any public comments? Just people sitting. Okay, excellent. Do we have then closing in-person public comment and moving to virtual public comment?
There's nobody waiting for virtual public comment.
Oh, last time we didn't have any other. Okay, no public comments. Excellent. We will close public comment and move into written communication. Does somebody want to start? David? No? Doug? No? Nothing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Okay, on behalf of the board, at least I thought it was to the board, perhaps it wasn't. Gary Brown wrote in April about the marijuana initiative by the city. Same day, got an email from Carolyn Petty about school funding and marijuana. And first week of May, got an email about an open teaching position from Kelsey. That was it. Okay. Closing written communication and moving to the superintendent update.
Thank you, Maggie. First, just a huge, tremendous thanks and gratitude to the PTO and HBF for the Dolphin Dash and Hearts of Hermosa. I was at both events. Yeah. I was at both events. I know many of you were at the events as well too. They were awesome events. Like both were total home runs, and I'm not just being rah-rah right now. Like they were legit, really fun, great events. I brought my better half to the Hearts of Hermosa, and we just had a great time. And just you know, it is a good reminder of why we're part of this community and why we do what we do. So huge shout out to both of them. I know that both events did well. Next, on that same note, I want to give a plug for HVPTO and HBF volunteers. They are always looking for the next breed of parent volunteer. To make these events go, you mean like it really requires community dedication and parents stepping up to make it happen and make great things happen for kids. A healthy Out Foundation, a healthy PTO is really what creates, you mean like, I would say that the magic sauce for great outcomes for students. So if you're interested, please reach out to myself, reach out to the PTO or HBF president. But we need good people in these roles to keep on making it happen. Next, last week was Staff Appreciation Week. Also a huge shout out to PTO. They make our staff feel loved. I was at Vista the week and all these flowers started coming in. I mean, it was like, I saw like literally like, you know, like 100 bouquets of flowers go in through the door. I thought I was, what is it, Conroy's? I thought, oh yeah, I might have been at Conroy's. Is that still open? So yeah, so I just, my joke last week was love is in the air, but we have a great staff. We really wanted to make sure they felt appreciated. We did something on the district and board end as well too. So just a big thank you to the community for showing that love to our staff. It goes a long way. And it's a good reminder of that we all love each other. Okay, next, yesterday we had the Run, Hide, Distract parent meeting. This was an informational meeting about our safety protocol in the event of an intruder. Chief LeBaron and the HBF and PTO presidents attended. Small turnout, but I think that's also a testament to people are trusting the process, as well as that they understand this is sort of the reality that we live in now. Safety is our #1 priority, and it's really important that we're always working towards preparedness. That balance with making sure that our kids feel safe as well too. That's important. It's a delicate balance between fear and preparedness. Next, we have. I'm drawing a blank on the date. I feel bad, but it's the Memorial Day barbecue coming up. I believe it's May 25th at 4 p.m. 2:40. I created this thing. You think I know when it is. Okay, so we had 26 dads volunteer to help with barbecuing. We're gonna have a bunch of grills. No one called the fire department because we're gonna have a bunch of grills on Hermosa Vista campus. Lots of meat. We'll have vegan options as well too. And it will be a lot of fun. We're gonna have lawn games. And then I'm told that I'll have a funny apron. So stay tuned on that. At 2:45, right? And 2:45, yeah. And I'll have a hat. Some people will be at work at that time. It's for our staff, just to clarify. Yeah, just to clarify. Yeah. Yeah, no, Memorial Day barbecue for staff appreciation. But you know what? That's a good clarification because we'd have had a big turnout if that was the case. So yeah, I hope you dads get on that grill. Okay, so really looking forward to that. Keeping it going with staff, we had 36 nominations for Employee of the Year. How lovely is that? Where staff nominate staff for Employee of the Year. Those principals are going to have to make a tough call. So we look forward to celebrating those folks. This is the second annual Employees of the Year. And then I had a chance to catch the Hermosa Valley boys volleyball versus Paris, my former school district. They crushed them. It was pretty intense. Yeah, like I saw Dylan doing all kinds of wild stuff on the net. It was heartbreaking to some extent. So I was very impressed. It was a lot of fun, and kudos to the coach as well too. And just Hermosa athletics. You mean like, they've really made it happen this year and got those kids involved. So it was nice. I had a good time. Next, the SELPA Awards. So this is for our local here for special education. They have what they call the Community Award, where parents in the community nominate staff that go above and beyond for our students with special needs. So it's nominated by parents with students with special needs. We had 6 winners, which is huge, including a general education teacher, which I think says a lot. That was Tammy Heath. And those awards will be on May 24th at 5 o'clock. I believe it's a Zoom awards ceremony, so we'll be in attendance. And then we have also upcoming the first annual senior send-off. I don't know, there's nothing that goes with it, just the senior send-off. So on June 1st at 4 p.m., this will be an alumni event for all those students that are graduating this year from high school. They are invited to the senior send-off here at Hermosa Valley. We'll be serving ice cream. We'll have a cool photo booth, I've been told. And then we'll have a student speaker, and it'll be a good opportunity for those students to have a reunion with each other and with former and current staff members. So we're really looking forward to that, bringing our kids back here and celebrating one last ride here at Hermosa Valley. Is it June 1st or is it June 2nd? I believe that it is June 1st, but I'll double confirm that that's June 2nd. Apparently dates and times are not my strong suit tonight. So no, it's at 4. I swear it's at 4 o'clock. Yeah. We're not adopting a new calendar tonight, thankfully. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. Thanks, Jen. All right. Next, for construction, I paid a surprise visit to Hermosa View today at 4:30 p.m. And man, are those guys working hard. Look at this. I mean, like, that's me and the crew. These guys were nailing things to the wall and, burning all kinds of stuff. I tried to help. They said, stand back. It was a good time, but there was 20 workers on site, busy over there at 4:30. So super awesome work from the Erickson Hall Construction Company. I really want to thank the neighbors. They've been so flexible. We are racing to the finish line here. Our completion date is August 18th. There's 2 months left of some heavy duty construction and it's going to taper off, but every minute counts. I can tell you, if you were on that site, you can see that they are hustling. So let's keep it going. You mean like working hard, and I mean, thanks to the community, I mean like we're going to get this school done and get our youngest students, TK through 2, in a brand new school by September 6th. Going to be great. All right. Okay, here we go. On that note, we will be cutting a ribbon on Thursday, August 25th at 1 p.m. Can I get a fact check? No, that's correct. 1 p.m. No. I understand. Yeah, I understand reason to doubt me. I get that, but it is actually at 1 p.m. Yeah. I believe, Jen, you're referencing the board tour. Yeah. No, all good. All feedback welcome after the performance I've done. Yeah. So it'll be fun. We'll be looking at the ocean as we cut the ribbon. I've seen the view, that's that nice courtyard area. It's going to be awesome. So we're really excited. We're gonna invite everybody out. I mean, like, you know, this will be the for real barbecue. No barbecue, but everyone's invited. So it's going to be great. And then finally, I would like to share that our school district has won the California Pivotal Practice Award. Hey. So the California Pivotal Practice Award is the equivalent this year for the California Distinguished Award. We are one of 21 schools in LA County and one of 121 schools in the state. And for reference, there's over 1,000 school districts in California, 1,200, I believe. Sylvia looked that up because she wanted to see. So I am just really pleased. We were acknowledged for our unique achievements in social emotional wellness during COVID. And I really want to credit like the team of last year and this year. You mean like our theme about connected together apart, our virtual counseling spaces, and the efforts upon the board and HBF to make sure that we had the counseling staff necessary to make the strides that we needed to in response to COVID. So very proud of the team. Like this staff, I mean, like this community, gangbusters during this pandemic. And I think tonight you'll see some of our achievement scores bear out just what we've been able to accomplish, I mean, like in the last 2 years. And that is my superintendent update. Thank you.
Wow. That was a lot, Jason. Any questions or comments from the board? Starting with Stephen. Doug? A lot of awesome stuff. We'll leave it at that. Excellent. Thank you, Nancy. Bye all. Moving into board reports. Jennifer, if you would, Wellness Council.
Yeah, I have a couple. I have Wellness Council and the equity. On the Wellness Council, it's been such a great group of people that are meeting together monthly. The last month we went through kind of all the events and programs that we've been doing in Hermosa, and Jason had us all look through those and talk about what events and programs we have been doing, what we haven't been doing, and what we want to keep for next year, what we want to add to it. So it was a good moment of reflection for everyone, and the ability to give feedback as well as any good new suggestions from the group. And we have some just top-notch professionals in the mental health community that live in our community that have kids that go to our schools that are participating. So we are really blessed to have that. It's an amazing group of people that are helping on this committee. That was the main part of it. That was where we spent the majority of our time for health and wellness. So I'm going to move. Oh, and then just one little note is that there is a Families Connected Speaker Series speaker on Tuesday, May 17th about your digital devices and parenting strategies. So it seems like a really timely one too.
And I believe that's actually at Hermosa Vista. It's at our NPR.
Okay. And then with the Equity and Inclusion Committee, we have met recently, and also kind of went through the programs that we have as a district and what we've been doing in terms of the equity, just all the outline, I would say. What do we
The
call
action
it?
plan.
The action plan. Thank you, Jason. What has been happened, what hasn't happened yet, or what we want to see changed, or how we want to see the committee move forward next year. We talked a bit about the panorama survey data the last time. We talked a bit about LBGQT plus support on campus and what we are doing or what we have and what maybe we don't have, and how to support students better. We talked a bit about just acknowledging the Ukraine response and how do we handle that as giving teachers any tools, or, is that something that as a district we want to bring up and talk about, or and the trauma that we're visually seeing. And that was the gist of the meeting. We're also just thinking about in terms of the LGBTQ plus, in terms of like looking at what other middle schools are doing around our area to kind of get some better ideas. So I know we've been getting a lot of good feedback from the board as well as from people in the community. So keep up sending us any questions or things we can highlight at the meeting. It's lots of great conversations in both committees. And thank you to all the people that are participating. It's been a pleasure.
Any questions for Jen? Yep. So board president updates on behalf of Jen and Stephen and myself. Thank you to Jason and the school site leads for the teacher appreciation coffee carts last week. I thought it was so well done in partnership with PTO. It was I'm sure the teachers felt celebrated and they told us they felt celebrated, but it was great to just be able to be there with them in person and say thank you in person. So we appreciate everybody's effort who went into that. Stephen pawned off another committee on me, the Beach Cities Partnership for Youth Coalition. So I was a proud participant in that 2 weeks ago, and I can send over the minutes for folks who want to hear all the great works that the partnership is doing. The Youth Coalition did a presentation on vaping and mental health, which was good and inspiring and a look at where students are at right now. So it was very helpful to get that snapshot. In terms of advocacy, I just wanted to highlight the fact that the district wrote a letter of support in April for AB 1419, which was Murat Suchi's base bill, and that bill never got out of committee. So we did a letter of support. There was a lot of folks signing on to that, and it never got out of committee. So that is not on the table moving forward. Last week, the South Bay board president signed a letter to, what is his title? Gilcheck.
He's the chief medical officer. He's basically over schools for LA Department of Health.
LA Department of Health officer on the new May 4th health order mandate requiring asymptomatic students with exposure around masks. We spoke about this heavy enforcement burden on staff, just to let them know that what this has to do in terms of our processes on campuses. And then today I participated on behalf of the district on a panel with the state in advance of the May revise, talking about the governor's proposed budget that is coming out and what the money with LCFF for the base and specifically around pension reform, how that impacts our budget. And then lastly, I had the opportunity to participate in a trip to DC several weeks ago to do federal advocacy work. Some really cool conversations that came out of that. Conversation with the FCC chairwoman on urgent digital opportunity funds. So specifically looking at how do we increase connectivity here in Los Angeles County, which fun fact, I think is bigger than the next surrounding 7 states. Then connected with advocacy groups on looking at protecting privacy for students and how to increase resources for funding on cyber attacks on districts. And then lastly, I had a chance to talk to Ted Liu's staff in DC. So we get him all the time here, but to be in DC, got to go visit him in his offices. And again, reiterated the need from the federal level to talk about mental health for students and staff and schools and how to better allocate resources to support social emotional learning. And then also how do you increase the teacher pipeline with doing better loan forgiveness on a federal level for folks to increase our pipeline of teachers in the work. Questions?
Yeah, can you share with me or through Jason, the Youth Coalition, Vaping and Mental Health?
Yeah, I'll find the minutes. Yeah. And I have 1-pagers off of all of the advocacy bills that went out on that I can also share with the board.
Great.
Cool. let's move on to, I should have had this mint in my mouth. Here, I had to talk, pardon. Okay, moving on to a public hearing, we're closing board reports and moving on to public hearing H-04-2122. Ms. Montalvo.
Good evening. The board will hold a public hearing to increase the implementation of development fees established by the district against residential construction and commercial construction. We're opening the hearing now and we'll ask for any public comment. Seeing none, I'll pass it to back to Maggie.
Thank you, Paula. As a point of process, how long does the public hearing stay open for?
On the agenda.
Yeah, so you just go ahead and close your announcements. There's no.
Okay. Seeing no public comment, we are going to now close this public hearing. Moving on to the superintendent report.
Sure. All right, good evening, board. Tonight I'm going to present to you about the enrollment update from where we were. We last presented back in January, just talking about our projections, working with Decision Insight, our analytics company through PowerSchool. That gave us an idea of what we could be looking at. A lot has changed since then. We are fully now in the swing of enrollment things. And we believe tonight we have some great news for you. Slide. So where we are sitting here in May, that we've nearly reached our projected enrollment benchmark. Just to clarify, when I say projected, what that means is the number of students who have registered for next year. I mean, so we count them upon registration. The projection results are in a change in revenue loss without hold harmless. So basically what that means is that we lost enrollment, in the 2021 year due to COVID, but we were held harmless by the state, so we didn't lose any funding from that loss of enrollment. The state, plans to hold districts to their ADA numbers in 22-23. However, there has been legislation that has seemingly become highly likely. We could find out on August 31st, but hopefully it gets done over the course of the summer, and it's looking better and better as time goes by. With the enrollment projection, there will be a resultant increase in staffing needs, which we'll discuss some of those costs tonight. Slide. So this is a matrix that shows a 3-year projection from Decision Insight, our enrollment analytics company. They did a canvas of our area. They looked at historical trends. They also looked at our work and permits and did an analytic projection of the next 3 years. On the right-hand side, you see a conservative projection. This is what we should be basing our fiscal around, according to our analytics company. So you see those numbers are a little bit on the lower end. So you err on the more conservative side for budget. And then in the moderate end, in the green, you see those enrollment projections. And that is really how you should project for facilities needs. So again, erring on the side of being conservative or aiming high to make sure that you have enough seats for all the butts that come to your school. Slide. So here's where we stand today, effective May 6th. That was last week. And what you'll see at the top there, so this is the TK through 8 and total continuum. The numbers per grade level that, for the benchmark of conservative, right? And then you see in the green, the benchmark for moderate going across. And then where it says 22, 23, that is our current registered students, like going into next year. What I put below there is the difference from moderate. So, you could think of moderate as our ceiling, so to speak, from the analytics company, and how far we are in each grade level from meeting that moderate benchmark. Slide. So what I did is I took a comparison of where we were at the exact same time last year, and the difference is very substantial. So we had 1,135 students registered for the 21-22 school year at the same time last year, as opposed to where we're at now, where we have 1,250. So that's 115 more students. And there you can see the differences. I would take with a grain of salt the differences in 2nd through 8th grade, just because part of that is the roll up of students. I think where you're seeing, numbers that matter is TK through 1. And you can see we're very much ahead of schedule if you're comparing us to last year. Slide. So we did work on our permit progress, and expanding beyond our borders to welcome enrollment. We are continuing to have success there. We have. Oh, that's okay. It's a nice bag. No. We just think of you as a great mom. Yeah. You're welcome. Yeah. Sorry, you got a smart kid. So, okay. So, what you see here on the left is historical trends. Where the time where I would say we were closer in permit numbers was back in 2001, 2002. There was 60 permits in the district. As of now, we have 75 registered permits going into next year. And there you see a breakdown of where those permits are from. And the largest number is in Redondo. We have 39 students, and those are primarily in the 90278 zip code, which is North Redondo. Slide. So here is a list of all the various factors that have gone into enrollment. It is a chase for us. We've been very aggressive in our approach to enrollment, including just pushing up our entire timeline by 2 months. Why? Well, one of the things, our learnings from last year, is that the private schools that we compete with do their enrollment and their marketing as early as January. So we attended a lot of their sessions and we modeled a lot of our work and our timelines off of what they're doing. We also have endeavored into new areas such as our social media presence with our communication specialist, niche, as well as continuing to work closely with our partnerships. One of our learnings last year is that athletics is a huge draw for our permit families. So we've been working with our partners such as Sand and Surf, as well as Hermosa Youth Basketball. And we have noticed a general trend that those North Redondo families are interconnected with sports. Slide. So the good news is higher enrollment. The bad news is it does cost money when you have more teachers. You do get more money, but it does cost. So we are looking currently at an FTE increase of 2 teachers. We're excited about that because that's new blood, that's new talent. Teachers that are, maybe either newer to the profession or looking to join our mission that we're doing here at Hermosa. So we're excited to bring in some dynamic talent. As this board knows, we've worked really closely. We've had 15 MOUs with various universities in our area. And we've made ourselves a priority by meeting with all of their graduate programs and their recruitment officers to make sure that Hermosa Beach is on the tip of all graduate talents as they come out to the workforce. There we go. Yeah. So we're really excited to see what we can draw. We expect a large applicant pool at TK through 3. Slide. So this is a budget projection that's revised after the second interim. It also includes the proposed 5.33 COLA from the governor's office. What you see is also without hold harmless going into the 22-23 school year. So you can see off of the conservative projections a $1 million revenue loss that then subsides in the future years. This does not include any cost of increases to our own COLA. So that's something to bear in mind. Slide. Under the moderate projection, you can see those revised numbers. I mean, like in the hump that we need to jump over in 22-23. This is, if you see those numbers, this is why we've done a lot of the lobbying work with the legislature that we have. Hermosa is a unique case. I think it's a good case. We testified before the Ed Committee for the Allen bill. And we'll continue to participate in that work, including recently we joined the Local Control Funding Formula Coalition. I feel very hopeful about the success of some type of legislation that will mitigate the numbers that you see here. Slide.
The salaries we need to pay for these 2 new
It does.
FTEs.
We included that. So there's your timeline and the May revise that we are, building into our budget projections. We are looking forward to a finalized state adopted budget. However, that legislation could come, really any time between now and I believe September 1st. It'll be an interesting summer for Paula. But I think the good news is that what's ahead looks to be good news. So we don't know where we're going to land, but we know it's going to be better than probably the numbers that you're seeing there. Slide. I'll take any questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Questions from the board, Stephen?
I probably didn't. I saved these questions from the TK Kinder presentation, but we're building a new school. It's very exciting. Do we have full day?
Yes, we have full day TK and Kinder before and after school daycare. Tell your friends.
That's great. Did you know? I mean, do we track on the numbers of the tours and the meeting present, like maybe even anecdotally, because just seeing maybe the number down on different from moderate sort of. I wonder if kinder parents are hedging their bets or leaving things to the last minute. And I'm just sort of trying to gauge, because you would imagine that a new facility, awesome program, all the rest of it. I'm hoping that sort of we see the kinder numbers. Obviously, they're up massively from the year previous. So that like the relative speak is great, and they're encouraging numbers directionally. Just curious your take, and then whether we track anything to sort of all these efforts to move things earlier and the extra tours and so forth. I'm just wondering how you're seeing that.
I mean, the tour numbers, I mean, like, and I went to most of them, I mean, like, are less than 100. I think 116 is like,
right.
So I don't know if I can calculate it that way. We did put a strong emphasis on students registering. Yeah, the sense that I got, though, I was aware, and I talked to parents that were shopping, was that most of those that were attending were registered, or registering. I do think in talking and looking at previous trends, I mean, like, and talking with Sylvia, that we will expect to see an increase historically in August. That may or may not level out with those that don't return. We've been very aggressive about our intent to returns, telling you come back. And we've almost cleared all of those at this point. usually those that you have to like kind of like track down. You mean like they're like, yeah, of course I'm coming back. That's why I didn't respond. So I think that we will likely see the numbers continue to go up. I think that the hard part is predicting in this era that we're picking up anywhere between 5, in the last month and a half, we've been picking up, like those trends that we saw last year. We were picking up like anywhere between 5 and 10 students on a weekly basis. That's unusual, but it mimics last year. And I think that that's part of that is our demographic. And I think that still like, you have people that are coming back into the public school system. We've seen that. You saw there's these big jumps at the middle school level. So that's either people leaving private or they're coming back into the public school system.
Do you have any reference left to right, like neighbors, Manhattan Beach, everyone sort of suffered a similar-ish rates, particularly at elementary level. And I'm just wondering if they're also seeing those gains coming back or if we're on par with those things. I don't know if that data exists currently from our neighbors.
So I've been told, and I have not seen numbers, but I've been told that Redondo is somewhat down. I do not have numbers on Manhattan Beach. So, and when I say, somewhat down, it's just it's at the lower levels. They're still bursting at the seams from an enrollment standpoint. But I can circle back and try to gather.
It's sometimes an interesting reference one, but I don't know. I'm finished with my questions, but I was just going to say thank you because there's so much work that goes into it, particularly the permits and all the activation and the communication with the community. There's even, I'm a neighbor and I'm in charge, sort of representative for the project. And even I'm surprised at how much the building is going to be ready in several months' time. It's going to come together really quickly. So I think once that's complete, it'll give people obviously the reassurance and excitement that we deserve because it's really exciting. So thank you for all the efforts.
Thank you.
Jen?
Yeah, I just had a question for, I echo Stephen's thanks and the work has been so awesome to see and the earlier work being really appreciated. Are we doing any outreach to parents that have 4-year-olds that may just be confused as to what the rules are with TK? Because it is a little confusing. And I don't.
So on all banners and on all flyers, it is actually explicitly written into the communications. So like our we have like a 4-point banner flyer, and one of the points is the TK expanded, and it lists the dates.
Do we go to like the park, or are we going to mommy and me groups? Are we going to any of those kind of grassroots areas to really explain?
We have not gone to the park or the mommy and me groups to explain that.
It just might, I'm sure someone's explaining it to them, but.
Yeah, we've really tried to put out the mass communication and our social media to make that clear. I think that what you see in the numbers though is that our TK numbers, I think, are quadruple of what they are. So if I'm less worried about our TK enrollment because I think that we're going to hit our mark, so to speak. And I think that the word of mouth, it appears to be out and talking with the TK families because when I was on the tours, the 2 tours, that was a big topic of conversation, was relief about the expanding TK and in some cases disappointment that it's not wider. Yeah.
Any other questions? Quentin, please.
Yeah. Kudos to you and Paula for putting this together and helping us understand the implications of it. I liked how you explained how you guys have to dual track in a way where you use the conservative set of numbers for financial planning because you can't get, you can't let your hiring get ahead of your enrollment, right? That makes sense. But at the same time, if enrollment numbers end up higher, you need to have facilities that can accommodate them. So it's a tricky planning task. So kudos to you guys for that. Do you guys, or did the analytics firm provide like an optimistic outlook on enrollment, or do you guys have an internal one? And would it be helpful to know what that is in order to think about class allocations, potential hiring needs, or for any other reasons?
The moderate numbers is the optimistic projections.
But it looks already like we've blown it away. So it doesn't look optimistic at all anymore.
You're welcome.
No, agreed. But I mean, for planning purposes, does it matter to know, would it be helpful to know what we actually think we're going to land at as opposed to the number we already know is in the bank?
We've broken past our analytics. So to me at this point, it could be anyone's guess where we'll end up. I mean, like the company whose sole job is to do this, I mean, like we are about to surpass those analytics. So you mean like I could throw out a guess?
Would you be guessing based off the data we had last year? So if we assumed like half of those kids might come from May to June or to August?
The analytics company though used our prior data in order to provide these projections. So they were looking at all those trends.
No, I know, since we have to like then now at this point make guesses, right? Is that the best? I mean, I don't know what's the best, but we probably have to make a guess of some sort, right? At some point.
I would say that it's safer to track the enrollment, I mean, like, and to follow it and to plan accordingly to who is registered. There's still 4 months between now and the start of school. And the growth that you're going to see is in TK3 enrollment primarily. So the planning purposes is going to be hiring TK3 teachers. So it's also not unusual for teachers to get hired sometimes a week into school because of increases in enrollment. So I don't, while our enrollment, is awesome that we're breaking our own analytics, at the same time too, I don't think that runaway enrollment growth or unanticipated enrollment growth is novel.
Right. And we don't have anything to compare the data with since we started enrollment 2 months earlier. So did students just register 2 months earlier? Did we pick all those kids up in this group that's already registered? And how many will we have in the next 3 months? Or did we already get them all? We don't know.
So flip side conversation that it tangential to this. Once do we get a point where we're looking at wait lists? Like, I'm curious when you want to come to the board to talk about what that looks like in terms of permits, and then how we set up a system to accept permits based off of facilities and whatnot.
Thanks, May. I would say that we are not close to hitting that threshold. I mean, like from a capacity standpoint with the additional seats, I mean, we would have to be in the 1,400 range to be seriously having that conversation. And I, here's a guess. I don't think that we'll meet 1,400. So I think that it will be a future conversation. I don't know if it's one that is imminent right now based off of where our numbers are at and the capacity that we have for seats.
And then a follow-up question to that, when we look at transfer permits, is it legal to put in like weighting systems off of that to say like Hermosa legacy families who might have had to leave the beach for whatever reason, but whose grandchildren or children live in a neighboring district, can we waiting lists?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question, and I can do more research on it. That is definitely an interesting idea though. About, let's see, I believe that Redondo, I'm just talking about my prior experience, Redondo bases their wait list off a lottery, but they do prioritize siblings and employees of district or children of district employees, and that's written into their board policy. I believe that's the only place where it's weighted.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh, great. Thank you.
Be great if we had like genealogies like coming in, dropping off their paperwork at the district office. Great. I'm next, so I'm gonna stay up here. All right. Good evening again, board. This is the iReady assessment data. This data is the third and final assessment with our iReady's in ELA and math. We are also going to be taking the shortened CASP, which is the California state testing at the end of this year. So we did have to bump up our timeline for iReady in order to accommodate the CASP assessment. Slide. As always, we tie everything to our goals. And this work is very much tied to all three of these goals. There is a bottom line in education, and it is the academic performance of our students. Slide. So here's a summary, and these are some key breakdowns in our data. You can see at the top bullet point, which is a comparative, in our performance, looking at last year's performance. You can also see that there's an increase in our special education performance, as well as that all of our subgroups have made progress in reading and math. That's something that we definitely want to highlight. That was one of our goals of the equity and inclusion, to target subgroups and to increase their performance. It's also to be noted, and this has been a topic of conversation, that when comparing the 2020 and 2021 data to this year, the difference is about 2 months of learning time. And that's because we needed to accommodate the CASP test that's been reintroduced. So I would say, I just have to note that, you're seeing results that may be 2 months less of student learning. Slide. Those are our benchmark windows. So you can see that some of these assessments began in April and concluded in May. Slide. This is our participation rate. I really want to give big credit to staff and students and families. Those are exceptionally high participation rates. Typically with the state, you need to be above 95%. So just kudos to the team. Slide. So this is your overall reading performance. As you can see, we grew from October to April, and our overall performance is 78% of students meet or exceed the standard in reading. Slide. This is a breakdown of our subgroups. You can see the level of growth in all areas. As always, we note there are certain subgroups that are smaller than others, so their scores can be more volatile, but we saw a pretty consistent trend here. Slide. This is a breakdown of reading domain. This is really helpful for our staff when we look at okay, where do I put my point of emphasis? And as a school, where should we put our point of emphasis thematically with professional development? So this is work that we will continue to utilize from the principals and their staffs. Slide. This is a slide that I think that one should take more time with, but I think it's really interesting, and I liked watching cohort data. So what you can see is how did students end up from, if they were first grade, traveling to second grade, because comparing grade level to grade level sometimes doesn't work in a district like this where it's so small. 2 grade levels can be really different cohorts of students because there's 100 to 120 kids. Whereas if you track that cohort, the question is are students getting better in their performance the longer they stay in Hermosa schools? And so it does offer up questions. This is where this slide generated some discussion among our team about bumping up the assessment 2 months earlier from last year. Like anything else, assessment should be is as valuable as order to understand how to produce quality instruction for students in the classroom. I would say overall, we, in taking that in mind, we are satisfied with overall trends, and the overall performance of the district is strong. But we'll continue to look at this cohort data as the years proceed forward. And like we talked about as a board team, that really we're establishing our baseline, and determining where we're going to go forward. Slide. This is our overall math performance, and you can see the growth trends from the beginning of the year to the end. Slide. This is the same breakdown of that subgroup data and seen pretty consistent growth across our subgroups. We're particularly happy about our growth in special education performance. Slide. There you can see a breakdown of domains. Something to always note is geometry typically is the lowest. You see that's just like informational text and ELA. That's a pretty consistent statewide trend. A lot of times too, that geometry is covered last in the sequencing each pacing guide. And I know that from just doing Eureka as well too, as an elementary principal. But with that said, we've talked about as an ed leadership team about how we can try to continue to address that within the curriculum. Slide. This is a breakdown of that cohort data. So you can see this is a little bit on the lower side, and the transition from grade level to grade level. Slide. This is a breakdown of, like that the board has seen before, of how we view various levels of support. We've devoted a lot of time and work this year, especially into tier 3 and tier 2, implementing programs such as the level literacy intervention, which I know the board had the opportunity to actually see firsthand at Hermosa Vista, as well as our before and after school intervention programs. And our goal is to continue to work towards to create structures where students get more individual or small group time, who are at need or at risk and are in that area of 1s or 2s, on the standards-based assessment. So, that is our vision. That continues to be our goal. We've established pretty strong structures to assess, identify, and then, support, or curriculums to support those students. So we're going to continue to work with our staff and build their capacity to continue to meet their needs. Slide. I'll take any questions at this time.
Thanks, Jason. Anyone want to kick us off? Jen.
Thanks for all that, Jason. It's really great to see. And thanks to the teachers and the students that are taking the assessments and just really using the data. I find it fascinating. I did have a question on slides. I think it's slide 9 and 13, the comparison of the cohort comparisons.
Yep.
And are we able to, this is just really getting into the weeds. So this is just are teachers able to see, because if you let's just say whatever the delta is, maybe -3 or -9,
yeah,
whatever. It's not a huge, it's not like -50%.
Yeah.
Some are -14 or something. But are we able to identify what students those are? Can they on their data? see
Yes.
that? And are they looking at those trends too? Is it was the kid just having a bad day, or was it there was actually some things that, I feel like that's a way we can really target kids.
I don't want to overcompensate with that. We did notice we think it's a fatigue factor, but we did notice that there were a number of students that you can track their time and their previous performance, and it went down. This happens.
Totally.
This, is part, but so that was noticed. But yes, to answer your question, that they not only can identify individual students by performance, but also by domain and breakdown individually. And this is why looking into this year and more importantly next year, why we've spent so much time building out the Power School database, where this data is housed. And then when a teacher gets a new class, their individual performance data travels with them. Because prior, right, you had to go dig it up out of the CUME, or it just didn't exist. And now that data will be at their fingertips. And then they also have access to the iReady system in order to log in to go further and deeper.
Yeah, I just think it's such a great tool because you really can personalize a student's education at this point. And that's another, I think, thing that we do really. I know a lot of people look at data, but if we can talk about data with parents and be we can give students a real individualized experience here, because we know we can track, we can see where their deficits are and then their strengths, and we can target those. I think getting people really used to talking about that with parents is a real selling point.
Yeah, and to your point as well, too, personalized learning based off individual data is actually a year 2 action item off of the equity task force recommendations.
Well, great, then we align.
Yeah, it's probably your idea.
You're good, Jen. Stephen.
Yeah, I think the 2 months earlier is a bit of an apple and a banana, isn't it? Or whatever the fruit salad is. But next year, with the iReady as diagnostic and CASP will be the third. So there'll be less tests. I'm just worried, just like how we're managing this and using it so we're not burning out sort of time.
We'll be coming to the board there's been a pretty consistent level of feedback about over surveying, over assessing. And I'm glad for this year we approached the way that we did. We really felt strongly that we needed a multifaceted baseline. I think that we can see from the data that coming out of COVID, Hermosa is probably where it was in 2019, 2020. We're not picking up the pieces of what some districts are seeing as just like a devastation of learning and performance. So I would say it's mission accomplished in that regard to establish that baseline. And now we can, I would say be more targeted about our across the board assessments. And so we'll be coming to the board in July and August with further plans of how to be more targeted about surveys and assessments. To your point that iReady being the first 2 benchmarks and CASP being the final summative.
Just to build on, just a second, I guess, Jen's point. The fact that the individualized, that's a key sort of selling point. And I know we plan to do more or think through that. I just think it's almost a marketing tool for more sort of how our excellence is. Because on a rolled up level, yes, these numbers are impressive, but also maybe it's unfair to compare against state or even national norms with iReady scores. But I'm just curious how that, how we're clearly doing all right. In fact, we're doing more than all right. Our students, definitely seeing some of those gains in the subgroups as well, especially SPED and things like that. But curious your take on.
Yeah, I do agree. Data is so scattered statewide right now. This is like a statewide crisis. To the point where the California Department of Education is for the 2nd year punting on having a dashboard. So I would say that, we are very much, if you look at our data on face value and look at historical norms, we perform in the top 5% of schools in California easily. And I think that achievement has remained consistent during the last 2 years.
Are there any other South Bay districts that use iReady that you know of? I'm just curious. I know there's different tools.
I know Redondo does not, and
They do not.
yeah, they don't, and that's PV does.
PV made it.
I just think it's
Anyway,
my understanding is the level of fidelity that we're using iReady, particularly on the assessment piece, is within the South Bay is pretty. I think Torrance might be using it a little supplemental as well. I will follow up with the board. I used to have that mark, but I'll follow up with the board and provide that information.
Thank you.
questions.
I think I'm building off Stephen here. I'm thinking about myself at a Memorial Day barbecue, and that like they always do. My neighbors ask me, how is the school district doing? They don't ask, but if they did, I'd want to be able to give them, a clear and concise answer. And so I've asked the question in the past about gee, these are our scores, but how do they compare? And what do they how to interpret a 78? Is that a good number or not? And I recognize the struggle of the scattered data. Others aren't capturing it. Others aren't using the same assessment tools. So it makes it really hard to contextualize the data. So I'm just trying to think through, in the private sector, your marketing team takes whatever information is available and turns it into the best pitch that they can for your product, right? And I'm just thinking about us as a school district, are there clear and concise ways to boil down this into what I think, but I welcome your actual knowledge on this. What I think is, a really good report card for our district, essentially. And you've talked about us being in the top 5%. I guess I wonder how we can take this data, contextualize it, support it, and summarize it into like simple messages for our community about, how great a school district this is, and in a way that's not just rah rah. It's actually, and this is why we're saying that, our scores are in the top 5%, and we're beating this national average, and learning losses across the country were reported to be 30%, and ours basically are level, and et cetera, et cetera. I'm just trying to think about that.
So we've shared some of those talking points, in the superintendent's updates, and talked about our performance and in context. I would say, yes, I agree that it is difficult. To compare, because districts are not publicly sharing their data to the extent that we are, to the point that CDE can't even produce a public comparative dashboard. I would say that our equity dashboard is unique and singular. And our data is strong in that regard from a growth standpoint and comparative. If almost 80% of your students are meeting or exceeding the standard, that's not good. That's great. And from a statewide comparison, I get that this is not a clean number, but it is the only number that we have, which is across the state in iReady, from the iReady assessment. Which is, I think it's like 500,000 students, that there is statewide average is 21% of students are meeting or exceeding the standard on iReady as comparative. Now, even if you were going to take those numbers with a grain of salt, that's still a pretty big difference. And I would also say, if you look at prior statewide averages, and that number is not remarkably far off from how the statewide average performs in relation to Hermosa. That, we have tried to get comparative numbers with our locals here, but again, the most districts are waiting for their summative performances and weren't showing their ongoing progress. So we look forward to, at the end of the year, drawing upon those summative performances that districts will present to their boards and using that as a point of comparison. That's always been our plan. We had hoped to do it earlier, but realized quickly that we were the only district that we knew of that was sharing this level of data.
Just a quick follow-up. Do we have targets? I assume it's not realistic to say, obviously we'd love to have 100% of our students above grade level, but like that, in the real world, that's probably never realistic. Do we have goals that we can articulate, and then we could say, hey, we hit, even if we don't have data from all the other districts, right? If we set ourselves legitimately, aspirational goals, and then we hit them, that would be another way for us to call ourselves out and pat ourselves on the back, or hold ourselves to account if we're not hitting them. Do we have any way of doing that?
So one of our district goals under culture of excellence was to establish a baseline through assessments, and then to create academic achievement goals in ELA and math for the 22-23 school year in collaboration with the staff. I think it's great if the board, in the district has, goals for the performance, but, the work takes place in the classroom. So unless you have your staff invest in them, you can set whatever goal you want. We've worked over the last, 3-4 months with the staff to look at the data that we're seeing, that you see tonight, in order to establish those achievement goals, and we plan to present those to the board in June.
Thank you.
Do you have a follow-up? Go ahead.
Do we use, I feel like last year, maybe we were talking about this when iReady was first coming out, and then we were rolling it into parent-teacher conference. Because I can compare it to another district, with an elementary district that does not do this, in Redondo, like they don't show me my students' data, and they don't take me through as a teacher, in a classroom, like a parent-teacher conference experience with iReady. It's like, it really does give you a personalized learning experience with your child. And I think that we could, like, again, building on the marketing idea, it's like, you can talk about that if we if our teachers are using the iReady data to personalize learning in parent-teacher conferences to talk about their kids. I think it's just
Yeah, no, that's
think
great
they are.
feedback, and I actually like I was so good feedback. I made a note here to follow up on that aspect of it. I think that's a great suggestion to capitalize on that. And we're continuing to try to work with our staff on iReady usage and balancing that with, you know, classroom instruction. And we found it's been a bit of a dance, you know, that because like we want to push for our at-risk learners iReady usage because research shows if they use it, like their scores will improve. And at the same time to balance that with their engagement in classroom instruction and the million things we have. So we're still trying to figure out like what is the good balance between the two. But if nothing else, like to have access to this work at home and as a parent to know that like, oh, if I have my kid do iReady time even for this amount of time, that will help their performance. I think that's something that we need to continue to work on.
Stephen.
Sorry, we're going round and round, but it's I know that it's coming from a place of love and appreciation for the data. I think also even science is separate, correct? Because it's just math and English.
Correct.
But I wonder if not only seeing the gains in our subgroups, but also we have like accelerated math as a broken out. And I just wonder if there's an opportunity to spotlight, hey, we've got these programs, but we also have an accelerated and just for that subgroup, they're performing 2 grades above. I mean, there's an element of they may be the 99th percentile of the nation in those particular groups. So I just, again, spotlighting that we have special programs, whether it's special for advanced math or science or things that we can go, not only holistically are we top 5%, not only, you know, supporting all of our subgroups and all of our learners to get to this excellence, but also we have specific programs and getting into that.
Yeah, we do everything.
Sorry, marketing workshop.
I'm going to beat the dead horse and jump on the conversation here. And compliments to the city for the new microphones. Really, really on point. I think just my thoughts to the board are the context of supporting what Jason's saying here, that we are not even 1 year on this equity committee, right? Like the equity resolution was last fall, last spring was where we started thinking about like, what is the framework? And like this year is the first year we've actually put in place the equity committee where we are in the process of gaining this benchmark stuff. So like the district wasn't given the task to do this until, you know, a year ago at this time. So I just think like taking that beat that we are like in it right now, we are in like the formation of this process that's going to launch the district forward in how we do benchmark by creating this benchmark into allowing us to have all those conversations around growth and growth and achievement. That's all we want, more growth. But in addition to that, you know, some of this conversation, I don't know if it's apples to apples comparison off of assessment tools is really nice. So if everybody used the iReady data, that's great. But at the same time, it's based in grade level standards. And so we can take it generally at that when we're having a conversation, right? If our iReady data is saying that 78% is at or above grade level in ELA, like by comparison, another assessment tool, the NAEP, the National Education Academic something, you know, shows that, you know, 4th graders nationwide are at 28%, right? Like, I think you can just literally take it at, we're at 78% and the nation's at 28%, right? Like, so just right there, we can have a conversation that illustrates that our students are on track for better success academically and in their future academic choices without getting into like the rigor of the assessment tool. And then to actually speak to you, Jason, off of the data itself, I'm curious, when you were looking at this data specifically, looking at the trimester assessments, do you see anything that might have indicated, to go back to like 3 years ago of how we thought about this, was there like do you think a summer slump at all? Like, does that even occur in like pandemic world where like our October data in some way would have been affected by kids having an almost a traditional summer where there was slumping, academic slouching involved?
That's a great question. to your point, we actually purposely took the assessment in October because of, the historic summer slump. And those, don't know, the summer slump is just like a phenomenon in education where take kids out of school for, 2-3 months, like they just, I don't know, their brains turn to mush. Like I think we've all experienced it. It's like, oh my God, I gotta take notes. So the answer is yes and yes. I don't know. I mean, like when I look at the overall trends and I look at previous CAS performance in the district going back to 18-19, I don't know that it stands out as remarkable from prior years. I mean, like, so, but
My brain just went to the fact that weren't created until 1904. But should go ahead at 18-19. That's fine.
Yeah. Back in the 19th century. So I don't like, you mean like it didn't stand out. You mean like from that, but I totally, yes, that summer slump is real. And we backed the assessment up because of that.
To go further into this cohort data, I'd be curious if like this generation is forever going to be marked by COVID for all the things, but it would be an interesting snapshot. And again, iReady is a new tool we're using, all the caveats. But is there any way that we have to look at like where students are coming in or leaving the school year, like off of that like 5-year trend? Like, do we know based off of like grade level averages, like our third graders hitting at a reading level that was comparable to pre-pandemic levels, like what we're seeing right now in like April or CASP like data? Like
it's a good question. Like so we did go back and less of this year because we've had less time. But in 2021 iReady data, we went back and we comped that because we had a lot of it we had to do for the equity task force. Like we comped the performances from 18, 19, 17, 18. I can't remember if we went back to 16, 17. And the performances were relatively similar. There wasn't like, but remember, this is overall.
Right.
I don't know if that data for cohort is readily available, but I'm a big believer in the cohort data for some of the reasons I explained earlier, where I think it's actually like a very interesting measure where it's like, what are you doing for a cohort of kids as they move through the grade levels? And it inspires good conversation between grade levels, right? If a grade level, when they were second graders, excelled in the ELA standard of vocabulary, right? And then we saw a decline or an increase in third grade, it could inspire questions of practice, right? I mean, like in order to arrive at best practice. So I really view it as a collaborative tool. I mean, like hence why we're producing this data. And like now our job is to create spaces where staff can have these conversations with the data. So I haven't looked at it from that framework, but our goal would to continue to track cohort data moving forward using CAS. I think one of the downsides right now is that, because like it all builds the CAS, right? When you're looking at the cohort, is that this year, the California Department of Education made a decision to do the amended CAS rather than the full CAS, which from my perspective is disappointing because once again, we're not going to get an apples to apples measure. I understand the reasoning behind it. I mean, like, which is, that there's the experience of students across the state has been remarkably different. So to put students in a full CASP assessment, I mean, like, is unfair in many parts of the state. For us, if you look at our iReady data, we're ready for a full CASP, right? And so I think that will have to be looked at, but I think it can still be tracked in that way. And there are tools and programs that I would like us to look at moving forward that will help us to take CASP data and to integrate it into cohort data. And some of those tools are through PowerSchool. They're additional, like through the Power Pack. But that would be the goal moving forward. That'd be hard though to go back and to try to pull that in a meaningful way.
Sorry, we're taking up a lot of time on this here. My last question on this though is, we have so many different assessments and so many different surveys that we're using with students, and we see some real strengths and we see some real weaknesses. A lot of the weaknesses I've seen have been around social emotional indicators for youth, right? A lot of sadness, a lot of depression, a lot of confusion, right? And everything tells us that that has takes a toll on academic learning, right? Like we know that in practice, right? But at the end of the day, if our scores are still really strong, I am curious, like where it's all playing out, right? Like our kids are saying they want the social emotion supports. We've dedicated resources to giving it. So like I'm glad that like students are starting to find those supports. And where are we seeing it in also in the
This is information that we just received. So the board does not have access to this yet, so I apologize. But we requested from the California Healthy Kids Survey state averages based on participation, but California Healthy Kids Survey, pretty much everyone participates. Yep. And it produced, because they recognize, and our point is that they produced modules that were new this year, such as chronic sadness. So we have no reference point. And so they, to their credit, I love West Ed, they accumulated the data. And so we were able to compare our data to statewide averages, which will be in the next board update. I will spare you the suspense. We are far above statewide averages. And what I mean by above is that we are experiencing, it seems like much less of the effects of social emotional unwellness in comparison to other students in the state.
We just took a long tangent off of iReady specific scores. Does anybody else want to go into this, or seeing some tired eyes? We're almost ready to take a little break here, but Stephen pulled something from consent, so you guys have to wait a little longer. Okay, anything else for Jason? Okay, let's close iReady.
Thank you.
Throw Stephen under a bus and move into the item pulled for discussion for consent. And I don't have that number. It was S40. S40. -2122, acceptance of gifts.
Thank you, board, for bearing with me on pulling this one. My thought on this one was just to see if the board would appreciate understanding what are our policies around who gives us money, who does give us money, what are the conditions around what they give us money for, corporations and then their promotion on site, that sort of thing. Also, when we maybe go out to organizations, is there a means in which we should do that? Do we competitively bid it when we promote an opportunity or something like that? Or are we taking the first opportunity we get? Obviously, all money is gratefully received, but what are the ties that come with certain acceptance of gifts? So, very grateful to our sponsors and those that give, but I just had some queries around that.
Jason, do you want to start the conversation on where current district policies are at with that? Or do you want to just hear from the board on their opinions?
Sure, I'll hear from the board on their opinions.
I'm going to open it up to the board. Opinions on gifts and conditions around gifts? Anyone? Did you still have more to say off of it?
I guess, I'll give an instance. So where a corporation is giving money and then they're promoting their logo with the, clause or request that then be promoted in classroom to students. And so the students are being exposed to that branding from that particular corporation, and I'm just curious, not necessarily in this instance, but just generally, like if there's things that we would want to query and review and look at, just to clarify it further.
Jen, did you have a?
I was just going to ask do we already have outline board policy on that?
That's what I'm looking up right now.
And was there something in concern you had in concern, like a specific that you have concern about?
It sounded like conditions with the gifts.
I guess conditions around the gifts, yeah.
The gift itself.
Sometimes maybe who it's from, but in this particular instance, you've got, an organization where, impacting the environment, and we live in an environment where we deeply care about our environment. Now, they do a lot to support the environment, but there's also, possible concerns or issues surrounding the nature of their business and their industry and what impact they have to the environment. So I had just a thought, and I'm just curious, like if the board has concerns about how we then promote that on internally to students. I'll give a bad example. We wouldn't probably want to accept a donation from an organization that promoted bad health. Well, do we want to accept, what are our conditions of acceptance of gifts from an organization that perhaps doesn't doesn't do things as much?
So let's break, you have a lot of different issues in there. So
Yeah.
let's hear from.
Well,
folks.
I'm not sure how I feel about all the different ones yet, but I do think it's a slippery slope. So, we get a lot of sponsors from a lot of different groups, whether it's for a PTO, what HBF, our own district. And I don't know if we have rules around it. I'm not sure, I'd like to know what our board policy is already and to see if we just need to review it but I'm just not sure. I'm not sure I'm just not sure it's a good idea to make a hard and fast rule on everything. I think maybe there's some guiding principles.
Absolutely. And if there are guiding principles.
Because that would be a lot of it's a judgment call. It's like, then are you going to determine, are you going to judge, there may be a lawyer that we get money from or a real estate agent that we get money from that we're like, are they healthy? It's like, are they good for kids? I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot of
history. There was a back to the oil, and things like that. And so I guess, this is where, like you say, slippery slope, or where do you draw the line, or what are our policies? I guess I couldn't find the policies. I came at this a little bit late to the meeting in terms of looking at this particular item. It sort of triggered a question. And one that I just thought was, as we're also looking at other potential things, I know in the past, just to sort of, again, broaden it maybe too much, is like, we talked about sponsorship of particular facilities, whether, is a field brought to you by a particular organization, and how do we feel about sort of corporate sponsors, and maybe that's on a case-by-case basis, but I guess I'm just not familiar with the policy or the guidelines. And so I was just requesting that and seeing if there was a consideration.
I'm going to let you talk, but we have policy 3290 in our board policies. Board policy 3290. Go ahead.
Would you mind sharing it?
Sure. So it does provide a framework. And I think, to speaking to Jen and Stephen's point, that it doesn't entail undesirable costs, promote the use of violence, drugs, tobacco, alcohol, advertise, endorse the use of non-nutritious food or beverages during the school day, encourage, enable violation of laws or policies, imply endorsement of any product, or unduly commercialize, politicize the school environment. So those seem like pretty broad frameworks. There's some other things around the conditions of how it can be used, and another piece on corporate sponsorship in terms of how it may be given, how it may be used, the rights over logos and proprietary information, whatnot. Go ahead, Quinn.
Thanks for sharing that. Off the cuff, my instinct is that we should have a very high bar before rejecting donations and gifts for the school district. I mean, I think in general, we'd probably agree that it would be great if gifts came from organizations that had a perfect match to our own values. But realistically, I think there's organizations out there that, like lots of human institutions, are complex, and they might be engaged in activities like, I don't know, oil refining that some people in the community find bothersome and other people don't. But that same organization that's engaged in oil refining also believes in community schools and believes in public schooling and wants to support public schooling. And I don't think that I would think that we should set a very high bar before we start to get very choosy about that. I mean, if there's clear, real ethical problems with the organizations that want to support public schools, then that's one thing. But short of that, I would shy away from taking any kind of overtly, I don't know, political or unnecessarily judgmental stance. And if there's organizations out there that want to support public schools, we should thank them for that, generally speaking.
Anyone else? Doug?
I'll just say one other thing. Part of this, I was just at a reunion at my business school that built a fancy new building. You couldn't find a doorknob or a toilet seat that didn't have somebody's name in it for having donated money, or an organization's name. So I don't think it's unprecedented or or strange. I mean, I don't know, maybe like how much money could we get if we had crypto.com middle school? I'm not sure. They seem to be splashing money around LA these days. I'm exaggerating, but yeah, I think we live in a world where this is becoming more and more the norm. And if it's not doing meaningful harm, then we should be grateful for the obvious good that it can do.
Doug?
Yeah, no, I agree with Quinn, particularly something like this is to support specifically STEM programs, which is the basis of the business that this business is in. And they want to support that. If you looked at the various places they give to across Hermosa, it was all over the HB at Hearts of Hermosa, everything. They were a big sponsor for that as well. I generally agree with Quinn. It's a slippery slope. I don't want to be calling into that. There is a difference also, you hear about divesting from fossil fuels. We're not investing in Chevron. We are taking their money. If they want to give us portions of their billions and billions of profit, I'm happy to take it. I think that's a different way of something to kind of look at that flip side of it. The board policy, we should obviously not be taking money from illegal operations or things that are not suitable for 5 to 13-year-old children, such as alcohol or tobacco or sugary beverages, things like that we wouldn't have at school to begin with. We have rules against junk food and soda and things like that. And so you want to take Coke's money for an example, because it's going against the rules that we already have. So I think you draw the line there, but otherwise, yeah, cash the check.
Jen, Stephen, anything?
Yep.
Great board discussion. Okay, moving, we have to approve that item as is, okay? So is there a motion for item S-40-2122?
So moved.
Move to approve? Yeah, okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there Jen on that one, I think? Christine, if you would.
Board Member Cole?
Aye.
Board Member Cluth?
Aye.
Board Member McCall?
Aye.
Vice President Clerk Gardner?
Aye.
President Bove LaMonica?
Aye.
All in favor?
Thank you. Then moving on to the consent calendar, please, if there is a motion to approve or a motion, any other motion?
So moved to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Quentin. Christine, if you would.
Board Member Cole?
Aye.
Board Member Cluth?
Aye.
Board Member McCall?
Aye.
Vice President Clerk Gardner?
Aye.
President Bove LaMonica?
Aye.
All in favor?
Everyone, we have 4 board actions. Do people need a break? Power. Okay, I'm hearing power. Let's do it. Superintendent. S-41-2122. Dr. Johnson.
Yeah, as recommended, the board to approve a resolution to order a biennial governing election scheduled for November 1st, 2022. We have board positions that are up for election. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on behalf of the board? Seeing none, is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Christine, if you would.
Board Member Cole?
Aye.
Board Member Cluth?
Aye.
Board Member McCall?
Aye.
Vice President Clerk Gardner?
Aye.
President Bove LaMonica?
Aye.
All in favor?
Thank you. Business B-148-2122, Ms. Montalvo.
Thank you. It is recommended that the board approve resolution 13-2122 to increase developer fees.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments?
Cash the check.
I was like, this is a good one.
Cash the check. by Mr. Gardner. For the record, please. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Jen. Second,
Second.
thank you, Doug. Christina, if you would.
Board Member Cole?
Aye.
Board Member Cluth?
Aye.
Board Member McCall?
Aye.
Vice President Clerk Gardner?
Aye.
President Bove LaMonica?
Aye.
All in favor?
Thank you. B-149-2122, Ms. Montalvo.
Thank you. It is recommended that the board approve the extension of the policy with Gallagher for the builder's risk insurance for the Hermosa View Project 008.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Comments? No. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Jen.
Second.
Thank you, Quinn. Christine, if you would.
Board Member Cole?
Aye.
Board Member Cluth?
Aye.
Board Member McCall?
Aye.
Vice President Clerk Gardner?
Aye.
President Bove LaMonica?
Aye.
All in favor?
Thank you. Moving to personnel, P-44-2122, Dr. Johnson.
So recommended the board to approve a new classified position, instructional aid. This is in relation to the law that requires a 21 ratio in TK classrooms. And we recommend for approval.
Thank you so much. Questions or comments for the soup? Seeing none, is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Jen.
So second.
Thank you, Doug. Christine?
Board Member Cole?
Aye.
Board Member Cluth?
Aye.
Board Member McCall?
Aye.
Vice President Clerk Gardner?
Aye.
President Bove LaMonica?
Aye.
All in favor?
Thank you so much. Moving into board member roundtable. Who would like to start? Anyone want to talk about the band tomorrow?
We're not talking about the band tomorrow. There is no band tomorrow.
There's no spring concert tomorrow?
No.
Oh.
Long story.
Oh. Don't show up for the band.
Yeah, I actually got the official word. It is officially rescheduled and we will follow up on a date.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Any other board member updates?
It's not an update, but I'll take a moment. A huge thank you list just went out, but I'll second everything. The effort that went into both Hearts of Formosa, which the list just went out, and the Dolphin Dash the week before, and Staff Appreciation Week. This was kind of like hell week for our volunteers, and they powered through all of it and did an absolutely fantastic job, as Jason said at the beginning. You know, the events themselves were really fantastic. The turnout, the money raised, you know, it took the heart, soul, blood, sweat, and tears of a lot of people in this district. And we talked about iReady scores and performance and enrollment numbers. None of that would be possible without the army of volunteers that make events like this happen. And so just the most massive, heartfelt thank you to all of them. So, yeah.
Thanks for that, Doug. Other board member roundtable items.
I have a quick one. We have a planned initiative around bike safety, e-bike safety, but it's however kids roll safely to school, and we're planning an assembly around that. So just you may see some exciting communications and things. I say exciting. There's been a lot of work done by the students for the students, and I think it'll be quite impactful. So there's more to come on that. And then actually just curious on meetings, Maggie, that you have coming up with the city. Are you going to touch on sort of that sort of stuff? Right. That's it.
So to Stephen's point, we have the city school compact coming up. So for any issues, the agenda right now is in process. So please talk to Jason on that if you want to have a burning issue we need to tie in. And then the tri-agency is set up for three. I'm not going to ask.
I think it's 5:31. I'll look it up right now and I'll confirm.
And we have the tri-agency meeting. Just a reminder, the tri-agency meeting went to being a closed session, like working group process, right? And the city school compact meeting has always been a closed group with inclusion of the police chief now in that as well.
Tuesday, May 31st. I was
For the tri-agency.
for the tri-agency.
Right. And
Would you just, for anyone listening at home, what three agencies?
Oh, yeah.
the tri-agencies are the Beach Cities Health District, the City Council, and the School District,
Thank you.
looking at issues as they pertain to youth and the community. My issue for the board is not corporate sponsorships, but just as fun, summer workshops. So
What kind of summer workshops?
What do you have in mind?
we have we have scheduled, Christine has done some Herculean work of getting people's calendars in order to do a all-day Saturday, August 6th board workshop. Just to throw it out there, that is also International Surf Festival. So if any of you have children who are JGs, it's not an ideal weekend, or perhaps you might be competing yourself in one of the International Surf Festival competitions. It's a busy, action-packed weekend. So does it have to be that weekend? So none of the other weekends worked for any board members, so we can't push it to another weekend, but we could move it to a Friday evening. Would you prefer to spend?
Is alcohol allowed on a Friday?
You know what? I always spend my birthday with you all, so I have zero sympathy. My birthday is usually spent with the board. So
July 11th.
So the thought is we could look at one of the evenings that week, and because there's a lot of work constraints on folks, we obviously can't go any earlier than we normally do for board meetings. I had initially thought Friday, if Friday isn't a good day, maybe we'd pick the 3rd as our traditional Wednesday date, but started as a traditional evening session. Past workshops haven't always been up in here. We have done it at a school site before where we just have a little bit more flexibility to have conversations and do workshopy things. So it doesn't have to be in the space. But we do need to, I think, reconsider that date because Saturdays in August are hot property. So curious as to people's thoughts on an evening session and just powering through our workshop that week.
I can't do it that week, so.
The peer-to-peer swims on Saturday, so
that's-
on Sunday, so I can do the Saturday, actually.
You can get a friendly wager on times after that.
Next week.
The week of the 8th, do people have conflict? We have a school board meeting that week. So I hope you're in town. Okay, so it looks like the week of the 8th, because we already have a school board meeting, what would people be able to double up on? Let's just first start with this. Are people okay moving it off of a day and moving it to an evening time slot?
Yes.
I hear one.
As long as we start no earlier than we usually start.
Right.
Which would be 5 or 6.
We could, depending on the day and people's work schedules, we could figure out if it's a 5 or 6 o'clock start.
Does that work for you though, Doug?
Some days you have late nights.
It depends on the day.
Got it. Okay. Thanks, Doug.
We'll start.
Our teachers all come back August 12th.
Oof, that's tough. I mean, in a perfect world, I just want to put it out there. I think we're better, more conducive and creative thinking and blue skying of a day. I just, probably after 8, certainly 9, sometimes we're getting into stuff and it's harder to sort of really keep the momentum and the energy going. But I get the practicalities of calendars and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I just felt I had to say that. But in an ideal world, it would be a weekend date. I feel like those have been transformatively better conversations than trying to do it of an evening.
Mm-hmm.
I will not be in town that weekend.
The 6th was like the only Saturday that worked for people based off of the chosen calendars. So the week of the 1st, then evenings don't work. The week of the 8th will be tight for people.
The week of the 8th is also a board meeting.
Right. And the week of the 25th, people are out, I'm assuming. Is anyone out of town the week of the 25th of July? You are.
Tuesday is my birthday, so I will not be doing it Tuesday.
When you say the week of the 25th, you're referring to July?
Yeah, and Jen's out that week, so, okay, so that leaves out. Week of the 18th. Is anyone out of town?
Also of July?
Also July. Yeah, we'll be launching off of board goals. That's actually like, would we have enough time for you to prep from eval into board goals with?
Well, last year we did it on June 26th, which I think was the day after school ended. So we'll be there for the dance.
Okay, so potentially people are in town the week of the 18th. And potentially we can look at one of those evenings and work with people's work calendars to do an evening meeting. Does anyone have a Friday birthday that week?
It would be great if we could settle this right now, because it would save Christine countless hours of trying to coordinate.
Mondays are always particularly difficult because we have cabinet meetings in the afternoons. But that week, at least at the moment, I can make any of the other days work.
Okay. Anyone have any other late afternoon things that prevent them from getting here before 5?
I'd like to protect the Friday if I could, but the other days of the week work.
Okay. Okay, so Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, staff, do you have a preference off of those days?
Just a clarifying question, because do we not plan to use the city chambers? Because okay. I have a follow-up question to that, but though all those dates should work for us.
Although the impact, I mean, it sometimes was quite a lot of effort for staff to do it, not in city chambers. So I get.
But, you know, we don't have to have the full shebang.
You
Like,
just
as long
invite
as you have public
someone's
access,
promoted, yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
I think for a summer evening
Yeah.
retreat, like public access is fine.
That would be my ask.
So any night, Christine, we have a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday here on the table. Tuesdays are taco nights. I think it's my turn to bring dinner.
I'm good if you're asking personally. The calendar looks okay too.
Okay, so
Do we have a
Jason's-
classroom at View built by then?
No, we have to do public.
Yeah, it's gotta be a public space.
It's a work site. It'll be a. work
Yeah.
site.
It would just be at the MP, one of the NPRs.
But my vote would be to stay consistent with the Wednesday, July 20th, if we're looking to pin down a date
Excellent. Good job, team.
at 5 o'clock.
Yep.
And then let's just go ahead and say now that that'll be at the Hermosa Vista NPR.
Sure.
Okay.
So that leaves August 7th available for people to wager on who wins the peer-to-peer swim, Quentin or myself.
I just want to say thank you to the board for helping with the scheduling here. That is just a huge help. So we appreciate the time.
Okay. Excellent. Anything else for the table? I mean, it's only 8:15, everyone. Okay, do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Anyone have a second?
Second.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none.